Today's video will talk about probability and odds. So when we're talking about probability, we are discussing the chances or the likelihood that an event will occur. When you are calculating your probability, your values will be between 0 and 1. If you calculate a 0 for probability, that means that your event will not occur. If you calculate a 1, that means that your event must occur. So the closer your value is to 1, the closer it is to actually happening, and the closer it is to 0, the less likely it is to actually happen. And the formula for figuring out probability is the possible successful outcomes divided by the total possible outcomes. And I will give you an explanation of that in the example problem to follow. Now, when we're talking about odds, we are talking about the opposite. We are talking about the chances or the likelihood that an event will not occur. And the formula for figuring out odds is to take the probability value that you find and then divide that by 1 minus that same probability value. Before moving on to an example problem, I want to talk a little bit more about odds. Now, when you're dealing with odds, you are either going to be dealing with odds in favor or odds against. When you calculate your probability value, if your probability value is closer to 1, that means that you are dealing with odds in favor. Any probability value of 0.51 or higher is also odds in favor. And another way to tell is if your numerator is larger than your denominator, then you know that you are dealing with odds in favor. Now, when you're dealing with odds against, your probability value will be closer to 0. So if probability is 0.50 or lower, then you are dealing with odds against, and the numerator will be smaller than the denominator. Now, when you're dealing with odds against, you are going to invert your fraction after reducing it as much as possible, and that's going to give you your final answer. So let's go ahead and just do a couple quick examples just to show you a little bit more of what I'm talking about. So let's deal with a probability of 0.95. Now, we know that our formula for odds is probability over 1 minus probability. So let's just go ahead and plug that value in. So we have 0.95 over 1 minus 0.95. That's going to give us 0.95 over 0.05. Okay, so our numerator is larger than our denominator, so that means that we're dealing with in favor. And another way to tell too is our probability is 0.95. That's closer to 1, so that is also telling us that it is in favor. So let's go ahead and just solve this. So we're going to divide 0.95 by 0.05. That is going to give us a value of 19. So our final answer is going to be that the odds are 19 to 1 in favor. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and do one more example. Okay, for this example, we will use a probability of 0.25. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, 0.25 over 1 minus 0.25. That's going to give us 0.25 over 0.75. Okay, now our numerator is smaller than our denominator, so that means that we are dealing with odds against, and then we can also see that our probability is less than 0.50, so that also tells us that we're dealing with odds against. Okay, so since we're dealing with odds against, we are going to go ahead and invert this. So that is going to give us 0.75 over 0.25. That, after you solve, is going to give you 3. And this is already in the lowest form possible. You can't reduce that anymore. So solve that after reducing, and that's going to give you the answer of 3. So the final answer is going to be odds against. So it is going to be 3 to 1 against. Okay, let's get started on an example. What is the probability of rolling a 2 on a 10-sided die? For clarity's purpose, yes, there is a 10-sided die. There is also a 4, 6, 8, 12, or 20-sided, just in case you're curious. So what is the probability of rolling a 2 on a 10-sided die. So our formula for this is the number of possible successful outcomes over the number of total possible outcomes. Okay, so how many successful outcomes do we have on this? We only have one. We're only looking for one number, and that's the number 2. So that's how many successful outcomes we could have out of this whole scenario. So now, how many total outcomes are there? There's going to be 10. Now there's 10 because we are dealing with a 10-sided die, and we could roll any one of 10 numbers total on that die. So that's why the number of total possible outcomes is 10. So now we just divide that out. That's going to give us a value of 0.1. So our probability for this problem is 0.1. Okay, so now let's look at the odds. What are the odds of rolling a 2 on a 10-sided die? So we're going to go ahead and use the formula of probability divided by 1 minus probability. So we're just going to plug this number in here. So we have got a 0.1 value of probability over 1 minus 0.1. That is going to give us 0.1 over 0.9. Now, just like we discussed a second ago, because the numerator is smaller than the denominator, we are going to go ahead and invert that before solving. So it is going to be 0.9 over 0.1. That is going to give us 9. Now, because the numerator was smaller than the denominator, that means that we are looking at odds against. So our final answer for this is going to be 9 to 1 against. Okay, let's do another example. What is the probability of rolling a 1, 2, or 3 on a 4-sided die? Okay, so how many possible successful outcomes do we have? So successful outcomes, we have either a 1, a 2, or a 3. So that's 3. And then for our total possible outcomes, that's going to be a 4. Because we have a 4-sided die, and we could roll a 1, 2, 3, or a 4. So our problem is going to look like this. Let's go ahead and divide that out. That's going to give us 0.75. So our probability is 0.75, okay? So now, what are the odds of rolling a 1, 2, or 3 on a 4-sided die? So we're just going to take our probability here, 0.75, plug that into our formula of 1 minus 0.75. That is going to give us 0.75 over 0.25. Now our numerator is larger than our denominator, so that means that we are dealing with odds in favor. So we're just going to go ahead and reduce that. Can't be reduced anymore, so let's go ahead and solve. So we divide 0.75 by 0.25, that's going to give us a 3. So our answer is going to be the odds are in favor, 3 to 1.